Okay, so to pick up on Daf Lamed Aleph and Beis, we'd been discussing the machlokas between Abaye and Rava regarding Baal Chov's collection, and what we said is as follows: in the case of the Mishnah, or in the case of Rava and Abaye, we said, for example, what happens if you have a Baal Chov, which we'll say is let's say some sort of a bank, and so the bank lends all this money, and to Reuven, and we said, well, Reuven uses his house as a way of securing the chov, as a way of securing that he's going to be paying back the money. And so the deal is that if Reuven doesn't pay back the debt, the bank is going to take the house. Well, what happens if Reuven sells the house? We said, well, if Reuven sells the house during the chov, remember, if the chov is, let's say the bank lends the money on January of 2020, and Reuven has to pay back before December of 2020. And now the question is, what happens if sometime between January and December, Reuven sells the house, or he is makdish the house, he's feeling very generous, and he donates it to Hektish. So we said, according to everybody, there's nothing to talk about, that of course that's not a valid sale. The bank has the right to go over to Hektish and basically take it away, or to take it away from whoever purchased the property from Reuven. The question is, what about if instead of Reuven selling the house to Shimon, so if instead of that, let's say the bank sells the house to Shimon. That's the question. If the bank sells the house to Shimon, then we want to know, do we say that since, remember, we're assuming that this is during, in June sometime. So the bank sells this house. Do we say that, well, look, if the time comes and Reuven defaults, Reuven doesn't pay back the debt, so the house belonged to the bank from the moment that they lent the money to Reuven? Or do you say that no, the money does not, the house does not belong to the bank from the moment that Reuven, from the moment that the bank lent the money, the bank owns this house from the moment that Reuven doesn't pay back the debt? That was the question. And so this is the machlokus between Rava and Abaye. Rava says, Mikana lahaba. He says the bank acquires the house only from the moment that Reuven does not pay back the debt. And Abaye says, no, it's lamafreya. The bank owns the property from the moment that Reuven does not pay back the debt. So it's an esgal lamafreya, that the property belonged to the bank from the moment that the bank lent that money to Reuven. So we had a question. The question was that if you take a look, we thought to suggest that there was a machlokas tanam revolving around the same idea. The Gemara had brought up a brisa in which the brisa discusses two cases. Case one in the brisa is where you have a Jew who's lending money to the guy. So if you have the Yisrael is the Malva, so the Malva in this case is the Yisrael, and he lent this money to a guy. So the guy is the Lova. And what he does is the Jew wants to make sure that he can get his money back. So what he does is the guy has all kinds of chametz lying around, and he uses this chametz as a shibud to the chov. That if the guy doesn't pay back the debt, then the Jew is going to take the chametz. And what the brisa had told us is that in this case, if the Jew is using the chametz as collateral, that's a machlokas tanaim. What's the story after Pesach? So he said that according to the Tanna Kama would hold that after Pesach we say Eina over, there's no problem with that chametz, and according to Rav Meir we said over. And now what this seemed to be, we suggested is that, okay, so good. The Tanna Kama who says Eina over, this is because to whom did this chametz belong for the duration of Pesach? Well, this is because we assume that the chametz belonged to the guy, and if the chametz belonged to the guy for the duration of Pesach, that's why there's no issue of chametz shavel of a Pesach. Now, wait a second. So then, who would hold this way? Who holds that the chametz, if the guy doesn't end up paying back the debt, who holds that the chametz is still considered to belong to the guy for the duration of Pesach? Must be that the Tanna Kama holds that it's mikan al-ba. The Tanna Kama is like Rava. And Meir says over, well, that's because he holds that it's because the chametz is in the possession of the Yisrael for the duration of Pesach. How's it in the possession of the Yisrael? The guy doesn't default on the chov until after Pesach. So the answer is, it must be that it belonged to the Yisrael throughout, because from the moment that the guy doesn't pay back, it's Magal Mafreya that it belonged to the Jew throughout, which means that Rameir would hold like a Abaye. So the Gemara said, no, but this can't be. This can't be that this is the correct way to approach this machlokas, that this is in the Kudas machlokas, because the Mishnah goes on, the Brisa rather goes on, to give you a second case. And case two is the reverse. Case 2 is what happens if you have a malva who is a nachri, who is a guy, and then nachri lends the money to the lova, who is a Jew. And there, the Jew is using his chametz as collateral. And so now the Mishnah, the Brisa goes on to say that according to everybody, the halacha is, this is l'kuli amma. L'kuli amma in this case, everyone holds that the halacha is that over. That this chametz is considered to be, it's a problem after Pesach, and we say that there's a problem of chametz travel over Pesach, and you're not allowed to get from it after Pesach. Well, wait a second. If the negudas and machlokas between the Tanakh and Rameir revolves around the same point that Rava and Abaye were talking about, well then it shouldn't have been the l'kuli amma over. We should have said the flip. That according to the Tanakh, who holds like Rava, that's because he holds that it's mikan alaba. So good, same thing over here. If I say it's mikan alaba, that when the malva collects the chametz after Pesach, so we say it's mikan alaba. Well, if it's mikan alaba, that means that who owned the chametz for the duration of Pesach? The Jew. So the Tanakh in this case should have held the flip position. The Tanakh should have held Eina over. Excuse me, it should have held over because he holds that it's in the Jew's possession, because he holds like Rava. And Rameir should have said the opposite of what he said in the first case. Rameir should have said, well, wait a second, I hold like Abaye, and if I hold like Abaye, that's because I hold that it's Lamafreya, and if it's Lamafreya, that means that the guy owns the chametz for the duration of Pesach, which means that he should have held Eina over, because it's in the guy's possession. Should have been the opposite of their positions in case 1. But the Brisa did not say this. Right? The Brisa does not say this at all. The Brisa says, according to everybody, it's over. So now the question is, what is the Nekudas Machlokas? The Nekudas Machlokas cannot be Rav and Abaye's issue. So says the Gemara as follows. This is where we're picking up. So the Gemara says, Ella Hachma Eskin. So rather, what is going on over here? I'll tell you what's going on. The Brisa is discussing Kigon Shir Hino Etzlo. The chametz is deposited by him. That's what happens. He entrusts this chametz by the malva. That's what's going on. Okay, 1 second. So both cases, the Reish and the Seifa, if you take a look at Rashi, he spells this out. Ella, Reish of a Seifa, Kishir Hino. Both the first case and the second case are where it's entrusted, that it's deposited by the malva. Well, now the question is, well, wait a second. Now we're going to have to figure this out. Let's think about this. If in case 1, this chametz is entrusted, it is deposited by the malva for the duration of Pesach, why isn't that chametz travel of Pesach? So whose position is going to be the problem here? But whose position is going to be the one that's we're going to have to do more legwork for? Well, we're going to have to figure out why it is that according to the Tanakh, if it's in the Jew's possession for the duration of Pesach, why is it that that's not considered chametz travel of Pesach? So says the Gemara, El Hachma Eskinon, Kigon Sharino Etzlo. So he deposits the chametz by the malva. They're arguing in Rav Yitzchak. What's Rav Yitzchak's point? So we see Rav Yitzchak saying the following thing. Dam Rav Yitzchak, minayin lebal chov shekona mashkin. How do you know that a bal chov acquires the mashkin? How do you know that the item that's used as collateral belongs to the bal chov, to the creditor? So what's the answer? Shenemer, as the pasuk says, ulecha tiyeh tzedakah. What's this pasuk? This is the pasuk about actually items that are used as collateral. Take a look at the pasuk over here. Pasuk in Devarim. Pasuk in Devarim Chavdala. The pasuk says, "Hashev tashiv lo es ha'avot kivo hashemesh v'shachav es ha'maso uveracheka l'chat yetzedaka." The pasuk is saying that when you lend somebody money and the poor guy doesn't and uses his pajamas as collateral, so you should let him have the pajamas for the night. And then pasuk says, let him have for the night, and he'll give it back to you in the morning. Ulachat tzedakah. That's what the pasuk says. Ulachat tzedakah. To you there will be tzedakah. This is a good thing. This is the righteous thing to do. So what does this mean? So Dam Rav Yitzchak, minayin lebal chov shekuno mashkin. How do you know the bal chov actually acquires the mashkin, that he owns it? It's his property now. Shneimar, the pasuk says ulachat tzedakah. The pasuk says ulachat tzedakah. Im enokon mashkin, if he doesn't own the mashkin, if he doesn't acquire the mashkin, tzedakah minayin. Then why is the Torah saying that he is tzedakah? He's doing something that's really righteous, that's above and beyond the letter of the law. Why would the Torah say that? So mikan l'bal chov shekona mashkin. So clearly here you see that the bal chov is kona the mashkin, because if he's kona the mashkin, then I can understand that the Torah is saying, good, I want you to do you. It is true, it does belong to you. The collateral does belong to you for the duration of the chov, but I want you to give it back to the poor lova to use his pajamas for the night. And this will be above and beyond the letter of the law. That's what we're saying. So now, what we are saying now is that the Machlokas Tanaim is revolving around Rav Yitzchak's point. So therefore what? Tanakama Savar, the Tanakama holds, Hani Mili Yisrael Mi Yisrael Hu, the Karina Be'eluchati Tzedakah. This is specifically with regard to a Jew from a Jew. That's where we apply the pasuk of Eluchati Tzedakah. That's what the pasuk has said. Aval Yisrael Mi Nachri Lo Kani. If the Jew is picking up the mashkin from the guy, there's no kinyan over there, and therefore that's not where we would say that there's a kinyan. And therefore, according to the Tanakama will tell you this pasuk l'chati tzedakah, where it's considered that the malva owns it for the duration of the chov. That is only when you have a Jew from a Jew. Take a look at now. If we're going to plug this in over here, what this would mean that according to the Tanakama thinks, why are you not in violation over here? Why is there no issue of chametz shalom Pesach? Because when the malva is Yisrael and the guy is a lova, so in this case, does the Jew own the collateral for the duration of Pesach? Absolutely not. He does not. Right? That's what we're saying. That's why he holds that it's considered to be in the guy's possession, even if the Jew holds on to it for the duration of Pesach. It does not belong to him for the duration of Pesach. Now let's read it in. For a mayor savar, but Rameir holds. So this was the Tanakama's opinion. Rameir savar, Meir holds. Kavachomer. What are you talking about? I have a svara. There's a kavachomer. Yisrael mi Yisrael kani. A Jew from a Jew is kona. Yisrael min achla kol shekin. Of course, the Jew from a guy would be kona. If a Jew is kona the mashkin when he's acquiring from another Jew, in other words, he's picking up the mashkin from the lova. So and the lova is a Yisrael. So if we say in that case the malva is kona, so certainly when he picks it up from a guy, when he gets the mashkin from a guy, of course the malva is kona. But if you have a guy who lends Yisrael money, al chametzo, using the Jew's chametz as collateral, achar Pesach the kol over. But after Pesach, everyone will hold that there is a problem with chametz over Pesach. Why? Because in this case, when it's a nachri, just keep track of this. This is the nachri is the malva now. If the nachri is the malva, now we want to know: does the nachri own the mashkin for the duration of Pesach? So we're saying, according to everybody, no. Over. The Jew, there is a problem with chametz over Pesach because it's considered to be the Jews. Why? Because Hasam Vaday Nachrim Yisrael Lokani, the guy definitely does not acquire the mashkin from the Jew. In other words, when the Jew, so let's break this down. What we're saying now is that if the malva is the Yisrael and the lova is a Yisrael, well then we say that according to everybody would hold, both Rameir and the Tanakama, right? The Tanakama and Rameir hold that in this case the halacha is, of course, your kona, and therefore the malva is considered to be in the malva's possession, right? The mashkin is in the malva's possession. What about if this is case one? Case two is if the malva is the Yisrael, but the lova is an achri. Do we say that he's kona or not? This is machlokas, right? And that's what we're saying. That according to the Tanakama, if it's a Jew who's acquiring the mashkin from a guy, in other words, the nachri is the lova, so the Tanakama would say that you're not kona. The malva is not kona in this case. You're not kona the mashkin when you're picking up the mashkin from a guy. But according to Rav Meir would say that you are kona. If you can be kona the mashkin from a Jew, you can be kona the mashkin from a guy. Case three is, what about if it's the flip? You have the nachri who is a malva, and the lova is the Yisrael. In that case, what would you say? Well, if the nachri is the malva, the nachri is not kona anything from the Jew. So that's why we say that according to the Tanakama and according to Meir, lo kona. Which would mean then that if the chametz is being used as collateral, that's why in this case this would be a problem of chametz shalavar Pesach. That's why we would say over, as opposed to the case of where the Jew is lending money to the guy. Well, that's why we say that according to the Tanakama, because the malva did not acquire the item, the collateral, the chametz, so therefore we would say lo over, right? But according to Meir, he would say, well, the Jew was kona, and so therefore over. And that's what's going on over here. And this is what we said, this is really the Nekudas Machlokas. Okay. So says the Gemara, Tanan, well, we learned in the Mishnah the following. Tanan, Nachri Shehilva, and the back head's in S. So if a Nachri lends a Jew, Shehilva Yisrael, Al Chametzo, using the Nachri is the wealthy guy, he lends the Jew money against using the Jew's Chametz as collateral, Achar Pesach, Mutar Bana. After Pesach, it's much better. Now we're supposed to have a problem by the time we're done with this. What do you see from here? The guy is lending a Jew money and he's lending money and he's using the chametz as collateral, we say after Pesach it's mutter b'na. Wait a second. Why is it mutter b'na? In our Mishnah, this was the Mishnah Lamed Amud Beis. In the Mishnah Lamed Amud Beis, we said that it's going to be mutter after Pesach. It's mutter b'na after Pesach because to whom did the chametz belong for the duration of Pesach? It belonged to the guy. But wait a second. If the guy is the malva, and you just got done telling me that according to everybody, if the guy is the malva, then the guy does not own the collateral for the duration of the halva. So Nehi Nami, granted also to Herhino Etzlo, we did establish before that it was a case where you deposited the chametz by the malva, but who cares? I'm a Nachri Yisrael. I thought you said that when you have a Nachri picking up the chametz, picking up the collateral from the Jew, lo kani. He's not kona. So if the guy's not kona, then how is it possible that the chametz was mutar b'na? Now I have to figure out some way that if the Nachri is the malva, and he's holding on to the chametz for the duration of Pesach, somehow that's mutar b'na. How is this possible? So the Gemara says, lo kasha, this is really not a problem. Why not? Ha da amar le me'achshav, this is where he said me'achshav. Ha da lo amar le me'achshav, this is where he didn't say me'achshav. It depends what the nature of the agreement was when he's holding on to it. That's what's going on. Take a look at Rashi. He fleshes this out for us, and Rashi explains, lo kasha, this is really not a problem. Lo kasha masnisin da amarle kisherhino etzlo. Our Mishnah, where he says to him, where he deposits it by him, im lo etin lecha ad yom ploni, that he says, if I don't give it to you, this is where he says, if I don't give you back the money, by Yom Ploni, by a certain day, Yehei me achshav. I want it to be yours from now. And so since he stipulates, so Hilkach, Nachri Shehilva as Yisrael, if you have the guy who lends the Jew money, Kam lechametz b'shos Nachri. Then the chametz is now in the possession of the guy. Fi Yisrael Shehilva as a Nachri, and if you have the other way around, if the Jew is lending the guy chametz, Kam le b'shos Yisrael, then it's in the possession of the Yisrael because he says me achshav. That's what's going on. So that's what's going on in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, that's what's going on, is where he says me achshav. But in the Brisa, dilo amar le ma'achshav, where he doesn't say me achshav, ella kishar mashkin sanalo. It's like any other mashkin. The kaval is man, and he said a time that you have to pay back the debt. Shim lo yifralo, yiparlo yigve chovo. That if he doesn't pay back, he's going to collect the chov. Mi mashkono, using the mashkin. V'yishomo sobedami, he's going to evaluate it with money. Hilkach bin nachri shehova yisrael debeakol. That, but if you have a guy who lends the Jew money, Teriakol, according to everybody, I feel a little parlay, even if he doesn't pay back, also the Yisrael honest man, it's going to be also for him to have enough from that. Because the entire duration of Pesach, Shal Yisrael haya, it was in the Jew's possession. Okay, so let's go back to the Gemara. So this is how we answer the question. Lokasha, hadon le ma'achshav, hadolom le ma'achshav. In the Brisa, where you say that it's going to be asur b'na according to everybody, that's because you didn't say me'achshav. But in the Mishnah, where the Nachri lends the Jew money, and the Jew says, look, if I don't pay back by a certain time, then I want this to be yours from now, then that makes it the guy's in the guy's possession for the duration of Pesach. So it says the Gemara, wait a second, Minat Temra, where do you get this from to say, Deshani le, that you should distinguish bein heicha da amar me'achshav, between where he says me'achshav, and bein heicha da lo amar me'achshav, where he doesn't say me'achshav. Where do you got this from? Titania, as we learned in a brayso the following: Nachri here in pasporni. If you have a guy who is marhin pasporni etzel Yisrael, he deposits this pasporni. What's pasporni? Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says pasporni is pas gedola. It's big bread. Hafuya b'tana gadol. That's baked in a big tana. By the way, this word porni is obviously related to the word furnace. So the same idea over here. What he's saying is you have. I mean, it's related, of course, but the idea of is here is that they were making bread, a big loaf of bread, in a big, super duper big oven, as opposed to making bread in a smaller oven. But that's the point, is that this is, as Rashi tells us, this is something that would make sense to you. You're not going to use a small little bilkala for a chov, for collateral. You use a big ishmak, some sort of a shev brachas challah for the chov. That's what you would use. So Nachri here in Pasporni Eitzel Yisrael, ain't over, no problem. V'im amar lo higaticha, but if he says higaticha, this is yours. If you take a look at Rashi, what's higaticha? Higaticha me achshav ka'amar, meaning this is yours from now. Im lo aparei lecha ad yom ploni, if I don't pay by a certain date. So in other words, the equivalent of me achshav over. So wait a second. So Maishna Reisha Maishna Seifa. What's the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa? El Lav Shmamina Shani El Lav Shmamina Shani Hechadam Malay Me'achshav. That's different where he says Me'achshav. Lehechadalom Malay Me'achshav where he doesn't say Me'achshav. So Shmamina. So this is where you see this idea from this case of Hikaticha that if he doesn't say Hikaticha, then we say over, because we say that the chametz is considered to be in the possession of the guy. If he does say Hikaticha, he's over. Then there's a problem, because it means that the Jew had possession of this chametz for the duration of Pesach. Okay, so now says the Gemara, Tanar Banan, we learned in the Brayso the following thing. Chanus shel Yisrael, if the store belongs to the Jew, Mali shel Yisrael, and the Mali belongs to the Jew. The Mali is like the merchandise of the store, the products of the store. Take a look at Rashi. He tells you what specific kind of merchandise we're talking about. Mali shel Yisrael is pas, v'yayin, hanimka b'socha, right? There's bread and there's wine that you sell in the store. So what happens if the store belongs to the Jew and the products, the merchandise, the bread, the wine, all belongs to the Jew? Upale nachrim, and the workers are gayim. Okay? Nichnasim l'sham, and you have the non-Jewish workers who are there, who are going in and out of the store. So the halacha is, in this case, says the Brayso, chametz shenimtza sham, the chametz that's found over there achar Pesach asher b'hana. The chametz that you find over there is going to be a problem after Pesach. It's going to be asher b'hana. Why? Because whose chametz is it? Take a look at Rashi. Rashi explains asher b'hana. Why is it asher b'hana? Delotan lina lebepol. We don't say that it's the workers. We don't say it's the workers left over their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Ella min shal mali haya. It was from the store's merchandise. V'shal Yisraelahu, in which case it's the Jews. That's what we say. So again, Chanus shal Yisrael, Mali shal Yisrael, Pali nachrim v'nachnasim sham. If you have non-Jewish workers going in and out, chametz shenimtza sham achar Pesach. If you find the chametz after Pesach, ashbana. It's ashbana. Vein tzarich lomar, and it goes without saying, ba'achila. It's not just asher ba'ana, but it's asher ba'achila. Chanus shal nachri, but if the store belongs to the guy, Umali shal nachri, and the products, the merchandise, the bread is the guys. Upali Yisrael nechnasin v'yotzin l'sham, and the workers are Jewish workers who are going in and out. So then chametz shenimtza sham achar Pesach mutar b'ana. The chametz found there after Pesach is going to be mutar b'ana. Mutar b'achila ve'ein tzarich lomar b'ana. And it goes without saying that's mutar b'ana. That's pretty straightforward. So if the store belongs to the Jew, the products belong to the Jew, then the chametz that's found there right after Pesach is going to be a problem. If the store belongs to the guy, the products belong to the guy, then the chametz found there right after Pesach is going to be fine. Okay, so that's the Gemara. So where does this leave us in terms of Abai and Rava? Well, this all started before machlokas between Abai and Rava. If you say Mafreho Gova or Mikana Laba, we thought to challenge, we thought to say, well, I thought Rava says Lamafreya. We said no, he doesn't really hold that way. We challenged based on the Mishnah of Nachri Shilvei Sishal Chametzo, and we got rid of that question. We said no, the Mishnah is discussing a case of Rayino. We suggested that there was a Machlokas Tanaim revolving around the same point. We said no, that Machlokas Tanaim is really revolving around Rav Yitzchak's point of if whether the Malva is in possession, if whether the Malva acquires the mashkin for the duration of the Chov. And so we said that that's really what the Machlokas Tanaim is about. We thought of a question on Rava that it sounds like even in the case where this person where the guy is mav the chametz, he's mav the money to the Jew, and he's holding on to the Jew's chametz as collateral. We said it's mutar b'ana, but I don't get it. I thought we said that he's not konet. So how does this work? And we said no, it's a difference between achshav, whether he says me'achshav or not. And then finally we have this price over here about if the chanus is the Jews versus if the chanus is the guys. Okay, let's push on. We'll do the next Mishnah piece of Gemara. The Mishnah says as follows: Chametz shenafla alav mapolas. If you have a chametz that fell on it, a mapolas. So there's a collapsed building or something or another, ruins that have fallen on top of this chametz. What's the halacha? Harehu kimavor. It's as though it is mavor. You don't have to do biyar on that chametz already. It is like it is exterminated. It's destroyed. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Omer, but Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Kol she'ein hakelev yachol l'chapes acharav. All that the dog is not able to scrounge around after it. Okay, that's what the Mishnah says. So take a look at the Gemara. Omer of Chisda. Chisda says, V'tzarech she'ivata blibo. But by the way, you better make sure to do bittul. You have to do bittul in your heart. Take a look at Rashi. What's going on? Tzarech she'ivata blibo. Shema yipakeach hagal b'mod, because maybe you'll be searching through, or someone will search through this pile of rubble on Yom Tif. over Cholamayid, V'nimtza over Lav. And it'll turn out that if you look through this pile of rubble on Cholamayid, you'll find the chametz. So you better make sure to do bittul, and that way you're not in violation of Bayra by Matzeh. So Amar Chizah v'tzarach shivata b'libo. Tana. Now we have a brisa. The brisa discussed the following: Kama chafisas hakelav. You said, according to Rav Shimon Gamliel, that by the way, you better make sure that it's all dependent on what a dog is able to search after, to scrounge around afterwards, how far he's able to dig down. So the brisa discusses, well, how much is that? So the brisa says, shlosha tfachim. It's 3 tfachim. So Amar lei Rav Acha bered Rav Yosef, Rav Ashi. So he says to him, wait a second. Hadamar Shmuel. This that Shmuel said, ksafim ein lehem shmira, ela bekarka. Ksafim has shmira only bekarka. Mi be'inan shlosha tvachim olo. Does that require 3 tvachim or one or not? Now, what does this mean? So take a look at Rashi quickly. Rashi says, ksafim. What kind of ksafim we're talking? What money? So ksafim shall be kanon. There's a deposit. There's someone entrusted. Reuven deposits his money by Shimon. So what's the halacha? So ein lem shmira el bekarka. The only way for Shimon to do a proper shmira on that property, he's holding on to it for Reuven. He's expected to take care of it to make sure it doesn't get stolen. The only way to do a proper shmira is bekarka, to put them into the ground. Vim lo nasan bekarka, and if he doesn't put them into the ground, va'avdo, and loses them, pshiyahi. This is negligence. Pshiyahi etzlo. V'chayiv, and he'd be chayiv. The shomer chinam chayiv b'pshiyah. Because the shomer chinam is liable for negligence, and so this would be negligence if he didn't store it in the ground. So now let's bring this back to the Gemara. So Amalei Rach Bered Rav Yosef Rav Ashi Hadamar Shmuel Ksafim Ein Lem Shmir Al Bekarka. When Shmuel says this point that the only way to be shomer, to guard, to do your due diligence as a shomer, to make sure that the Ksafim are taken care of, is to put them in the ground. So me being in Shlosha Tvachim lo, do you need 3 Tvachim deep? That's how deep into the ground you have to put the Ksafim or not? So Amalei, so he says back to him, Hacha Misham Reicha. Well, over here in the context of Pesach, there's an issue of reicha, of the smell. What does this mean? Look at Rashi. We know this is going for mishum reicha shehakelav maricho. The dog smells it umechateto and picks after it umotzio and pulls it out of the ground. That's what the concern is. So be inish shlosha tvachim. So we need 3 tvachim deep so that the dog is not going to smell it. Hasam, but over there, when it comes to shmira, mishum echsuya me'enahu. We have to make sure that it's covered up from the eyes, that someone is not going to see it and steal it. Velo by shlosha does not require 3. Okay, so vakama. So how much is it then? How far deep do you have to put it down? Amar Rav from Bar Papa. Rav from Bar Papa says, Amar Rav from Bar Papa, me sichra, from the place called Sichra, tefach. He says it has to be a tefach deep. Okay, so what are we talking about in this last Gemara? Chametz that's buried beneath the rubble of ruins of a building or something. So we said in the Mishnah that it's mavor. Rav Shimon Gamliel advises better make sure that a dog is not able to scrounge around after that. The Gemara goes through and says, well, number 1, you better make sure to do bittul. Number 2, how much is chafisas akelav? We said that that's 3 tvachim. This is different than shmira that you're doing for money that's entrusted. Because there you would just have to make sure that it's not visible. So put it a tefach deep. But over here you have to make sure that the dog doesn't smell it.